I cannot say this often enough. If your backstory is more interesting than your current era, you're writing the wrong story. Lynn Veal.
You're listening to Writing Roots, brought to you by Aspen House Publishing.
Welcome to Writing Roots. I'm Lee Hull.
And I'm Lee Esses. Today we are talking about backstory.
Within the space of TTRPGs, backstory can help give the DM ideas about how to pull in some history, how to make the characters really care about the campaign. It can really help give the DM NPCs to work with and help players contribute to the story as a whole because it's their story, not just the DM's. But like in writing, there is a balance to backstory that as a DM, I see destroyed all the time.
One of the nice things about TTRPGs, playing these tabletop games, as compared to writing a book, is you know where the story starts. Because this is where the group gets together, this is where the campaign begins, it's very clear and very well practiced amongst D&D players to know where that line is. It can be a lot more difficult when writing a book, because especially those first few fantasy novels that you write can start in so many different places. In the world of TTRPGs, the player comes up with their own backstory. The DM then takes that and integrates it into the story of the entire campaign.
Within storytelling, especially fantasy storytelling, there is a common question of why this person, why that guy, or why this girl? Why are they the ones you're focusing on throughout the story? In TTRPGs, it forces you as a player to come up with that answer before you ever get started. Why is this person going to be a level 3 barbarian? What choices in their life led them to this point? And it really helps avoid the chosen one tropes because you're getting involved not just by yourself, but you know you're going into a tabletop game working with other people who have just as much standing as you do.
And practicing integrating those not only cornerstone memories into designing your character, but those motivations. Integrating those into the story as a whole can be huge for both players and authors. It's often up to the players to come up with a reason why they are joining the campaign. Every once in a while, you'll have a DM that goes, "Y'all were kidnapped by aliens, let's go." But for the most part, whatever it is that your character's backstory is that gave them the skills they have comes into play for the rest of the thing. And your player should be the one to come up with that and the idea of why I am going out into the world to do things.
Having the kind of knowledge that you gain either as a DM trying to get all of your players to join the campaign, give them enough motivation for their characters, or as characters deciding on your why for why you're pursuing whatever the inciting incident is for the campaign, why you're joining up with this group. All of that can help you when you go to writing and you're trying to write an ensemble piece where you have multiple characters all contributing to the story. Having the experience of coming up with the reason why for your characters, for your players, can help you within your story as well. And interacting with an entire table of players who come up with their own reasons will help you figure out how to make your characters all agree on the same goal without sounding or acting like the same character. Now, when you are a player in TTRPGs and you are approaching the creation of your backstory, you have to understand that this character is going to change. They're going to grow within the space of the game. And some of that is going to be up to DM discretion. As the player, you need to leave room for the DM to say, hey, here are the pieces of the campaign that I think need to be weaved into your story to really help make it feel like a unified story.
If you design too much backstory, then it can kind of lock you into a certain trajectory that maybe wouldn't fit well with the campaign. If you design too little, then it's just you playing yourself on the board. So practicing designing character backstories with the mentality of this is going to be a D&D campaign versus this is going to be a book, I feel that mentality helps you balance the amount of depth and information that you plan before the story begins.
A good way to go about that is to have enough to start the canvas of your character creation, where you have the basic structure, maybe you have a couple of the details filled in, but there is room for growth. There is room for filling in some of the blanks as you go to fit in with the story. I've had a player in the past who makes the most detailed, intricate backstories that you could imagine. They are pages long backstories for a level 3 character. While it is wonderful to see this rich history where they have all of this experience, now suddenly they are being stuck into the restrictions of someone who is level 3. It's incongruent. It doesn't fit because in my mind, I have this character who should probably be like a level 10 based on how much was put in the backstory, but they're only a level 3. That's part of why I think designing backstories for characters and getting a realistic look at what level they are, where they are in their skill set, can help you create a realistic background for that particular element. Because one of the things that I see a lot in new fantasy writing especially is authors creating these really deep, vivid backstories for a character who is coming of age or who is just getting started in their adventuring, but they have all of these big, massive power sets or whatever, and it doesn't match. TTRPGs going at it with that mindset can really help you find that good balance between interesting and well-developed, but with enough room to still grow.
This also helps you figure out what kind of challenges to throw against the character. Because if they're a level 1 and they're going up against this astral entity from beyond space and time, there's a lot of leveling up to do before we can get there. Another thing to consider is how much you're giving the DM to work with. Often this comes in the form of an unanswered question or an unfulfilled wish from their childhood, that kind of thing, so that the character can either get exactly what they want and realize it wasn't what they wanted all along, or they can work toward it and feel like there's some kind of a success at the end of accomplishing the thing.
So to pull Princess Bride into this, you have Inigo Montoya, who, a key piece to his backstory is that his father's killer was never caught. He knows who it is, but that person has never been brought to justice. And so through the story, even though it's not really fully related to what's happening, especially at the beginning of the movie, his key motivation is traveling the world to find the six-fingered man so that he could then take revenge and get justice for his father. And if you view The Princess Bride as a TTRPG, the DM character was like, perfect, I have the perfect character to just add a sixth finger to, and it weaves it perfectly in with the rest of the story so that he has a reason to work with Wesley to go rescue Princess Buttercup.
DMs usually love this kind of engagement. Giving them something to then integrate into their campaign can be a lot of fun. If you are a somewhat new DM and you're listening to this episode, you're going, wait, my players don't do this? If you have a couple of players that you really trust, ask them about their character's backstory. They probably don't have answers right away, but maybe next time you hang out, they will. And then you can start to integrate those, and everyone else will be jealous that this person gets to be the star of this episode because their backstory is coming into play. You can foster this kind of engagement from both the player and the DM perspective by generating these stories and weaving them into the campaign as a whole.
A good DM will be able to use these stories, use the depth that people have created for their characters, and use that to bleed through in important moments in the campaign, that it really brings it all together. And that's the same kind of thing that you as an author need to be doing with backstory for your characters, is allowing in those important moments what happened in their backstory to bleed through in how they approach decisions, in how they interact with what they encounter. You want it to have connection. You want it to have relevance to what they are currently facing.
And this is how other players and readers in books learn about your character's backstory. Is they're given choices that then their backstory can inform, and they make the choices because of that. The choice itself announces the backstory. We don't have to sit around the table and go, well, I'm this character. That's just not organic.
And remember, of course, that questions are more compelling than answers. So you want to use backstory, you want to use current story to create questions. Separating the question and the answer in two different sections can help it feel more memorable, can help it feel longer lasting and more impactful than if you bring up a question from their backstory and answer it immediately.
And inverting those, having the answer before the question can be a lot of fun. Your Disney princess character goes, yeah, back when I was fighting in the gladiator pits. And like, wait, what? Huh? That is the end of that moment in her backstory. But that is offering a lot more questions to come. So when writing your book, a useful question to ask yourself is, if this were a TTRPG, would the player or the DM have come up with this element of the backstory? If the player would have come up with it, maybe it belongs outside of the novel you intend to publish. It belongs before chapter 1. If the DM would have come up with it because it's integrated and part of the story, the campaign that you're telling, then that probably belongs on the page.
Either way, write the scene. Even if you don't publish it, it can help you clarify the story. You can remove it later if necessary. But more importantly, you should be having fun while you write it. So of course,
write selfishly.
If you have a question or comment for our hosts or a topic you'd like us to cover, send us an email at writingroots@aspenhousepublishing.com or find us on Facebook by searching for Aspen House Publishing.